Under customary law, a valid marriage is established by evidence or proof that bride price was presented and accepted. The components and value of the bride price may vary from place to place and is often subject to negotiation. In some places, the symbolic value as a seal to the contract is the most important. Though the bride has little say or choice in the matter, her agreement to the contract is dramatized. She is expected to pick part of the bride price and present it to her family. The groom himself, on whose behalf the family is acting, has just one role above that of an onlooker, complete and humble mark of appreciation to the family of the bride.
In Nigeria, children are desired in marriage, not merely because one wants the company of children. It's almost unthinkable that a couple would consider getting married and then voluntarily decide not to have children. Is the marriage valid? In fact, I'm told that some parents these days, rather than insist on chastity before marriage, actually urge their young sons to ensure that before they involve the family in celebrating marriage, to ensure that the young lady is already an expectant mother.
Yet, the formal traditional ceremony in many places still includes age-old rituals based on the expectation of virginity as a special virtue. Some husbands' families still demand to see the white cloth stained on the morning after the wedding night. Among the jaw, as soon as maidens signify their intentions to get married, they are publicly examined by adept old ladies who have to be convinced before such maidens are allowed to join the traditional rites. The old ladies are in fact experts recruited by a panel of elders constituted by the community to pronounce a verdict and nowadays also to issue a certificate. To be found unchaste literally brings public disgrace, both to the girl and to her family. Hence, There is great ovation and rejoicing as the maidens have been found chaste and virtuous. The virtuous maidens also received spiritual blessings, as the masquerades bless and purify them by throwing oranges at them, a bit of an ordeal for the maidens. But oranges are a symbol both of purity and fertility.
Everywhere, young maidens are prepared for marriage. Nowhere is this more elaborate, more formal, and more institutionalized than among the peoples of the Cross River. The institution that is known as fattening room is in fact intended not essentially to fatten, but to prepare a young maiden to give up girlish ways and assume the psychology, the skills, the knowledge that a mature woman needs to cope with marriage. There, she'll be trained to look after herself personally, to care for husband and other relations, to acquire the skills, housekeeping, cooking, and other necessities, so that she will bring credit not only unto herself, but unto the whole extended family to which she belongs.
The training and instruction of the maiden in seclusion can be quite detailed and meticulous. She is taught not merely to cook, but also shown the proper way of serving food to her future husband. She is kept very busy as she learns and demonstrates her skills in various crafts such as sewing, embroidery, raffia weaving, and others that may sustain her in the future. Public carriage is particularly important,
She's taught various dance steps and graceful carriage, in addition to moral instructions on her duties and responsibilities as a wife and mother. It is only when she is declared ready that the wedding ceremony is arranged. The climax of traditional wedding ceremony is not an exchange of rings between two individuals pledging their vows. Rather, it is the handing over of the bride by the head of her family, not necessarily her father, to the head of the groom's family or his representative, and certainly not the bridegroom himself. Handing over is a ceremony of joint commitment and joint responsibility, performed in the public glare among friends and relations, as in this epic example.
Cutting across ethnic and linguistic boundaries in pre-colonial Nigeria were two different political systems. There were states where government was vested in a monarch, surrounded by palace officials and court rituals. There were other states where government was not vested in one person. Rather, it was diffused. Different individuals and organizations performed different tasks under the leadership of a council of elders. When the Europeans came, they found this system difficult to understand.
Stateless, acephalous, fragmented. These are some of the epithets by which the political systems of decentralized peoples in Nigeria have been described by British anthropologists and officials. They found it difficult to comprehend political systems in which power was diffused among several organizations and institutions in the community, rather than being fused in one person. And so, when the colonial system was being established, they considered it necessary to create chiefs by warrant.
The warrant chief system certainly encouraged monarchical tendencies among communities where traditional institutions were hitherto decentralized. Such include the Idoma in the Middle Belt. Similarly, the Birom and Angas, also in the Middle Belt, predominantly Christian communities, have evolved a monarchical system that reflects some of the styles and practices of neighboring emirates, as typified by the court of the Gwangwon of Jos.
You are meeting me now as the Obong of Calabar.
Among the Jaw and Efik Ibibio groups along the riverine region, monarchical tendencies were already clear in the leadership of houses in the 19th century. Among the Igbo, the transition from lineage heads to a monarchical system is a recent development, except in a few places like Onitsha, Abo, and Western Igbo land, where the monarchical system can be traced to Benin or Igala influence. However, we must not exaggerate the differences between the two systems of government.
Before the Ibuku bronze objects were discovered and studied, it is a general acceptable theory that the Igbos have no king. They are Kapelos. A Kapelos society in the social sciences means societies without heirs, without kings. But that is not true. It's found now from the dating, because the bronze objects were dated 900 AD. So it's quite clear from our study that before 900 AD, the Igbos have developed a typical example of a theocracy, whereby you have a centralized system, which is a typical example of the kingdoms and the forest zones. And this centralized system, instead of using military force in bringing in people together, these people use religion, rituals. And the rituals are centered around also title taking and the rituals of abomination. These were the two major rituals they use in bringing people together. Another one is the market ritual, which was used in bringing people together. Not only that, the Ngri people spread out into different parts of Igbo land. In short, according to our study, there are over 45 Ngri lineages from north to south, that is West Igbo to Nsukka, and then from Aguleri, that is Anambra, down to Olu area, where the areas the lineages occupy, and they owe allegiance to Ezenri, performing other title and performing rituals of installation of markets and rituals of cleansing of abomination. Now these were used, unlike, say, the Benin system that is militarized, where you have a military system, or the Yoruba, which is also a mixture of ritual and military. Especially at a later age, it became extremely militarized. So we now find a centralized system whose system of government was based more on the use of ritual sanctions, not force.
The institution of the priest king of Nri, the Ezenri, which predates both Benin and Igala, must have been a significant factor in the spread of monarchical systems. The prestige and awe in which the Ezenri was held, especially in northern and western Igbo land, can still be seen in the funeral rites of the priest king, as it survives till today. It is in fact these elaborate rituals and the complex burial chambers that gave meaning to the archaeological finds of Igbo Ukwu and made their reconstruction possible. It is now accepted that the institution of the Ezenri existed at least since 900 AD. This development cannot, however, obscure the more widespread heritage of a diffused power system that has continued to survive at village levels. Day-to-day administration remains vested more often in the councils of elders, age-grade associations, and secret societies than in single individuals. For example, there is no king or chief that controls or regulates the vital questions of land tenure that is basic to the life of the community. The decentralized and more informal political system was so widespread that the underlying values are an important common heritage of so many Nigerian peoples. This is a typical Tiv village, consisting essentially of one household of closely related members who live in their different houses with a central house for the head of the family, shaped differently in the sense that it has open sides. That is the central meeting place for the village, where the head of the household overlooks everything that is going on. It is a central meeting place. They all eat together in that central house. This type of arrangement is, of course, in contrast to the nucleated village of the Sedi Doma, who are their neighbors, and other peoples in Nigeria, but is very similar to the dispersed settlement pattern which one will find in central Igbo land and other societies with non-centralized settlement pattern. The village may be a dispersed settlement in which each lineage has its own compound on its farm. Or it may be a nucleated settlement in which compounds are grouped together and the different farms surround the village. In either case, decision-making that would have the force of law requires the participation of the whole community, or at least all adult males. Such practice ensures that all extended families or lineages who form a land-holding unit accept the same laws and taboos and cooperate in the defense of the land. Those who describe the non-centralized societies as stateless are probably not fully aware of the various institutions for administrative and judicial control within those societies. Take Ekpe, for example, among the Efik. It cut across families and houses, and thus acts as an integrative force. It even spread beyond ethnic boundaries, so as to become, along with similar institutions among various peoples of the Cross River area, an integrative factor in life. In the pre-colonial period, particularly in the 19th century, Ekpe became the most important organ of government, and hierarchy within it was important for the political force within society. We are standing outside the Eyamba conclave, which is the main house in Duketown. And it is because of Eyamba's headship of Ekpe that he was able to become the head of Duketown. In the colonial period, it was out of Ekpe that monarchical system became established among the Efik people. Today,
The Ekpe society remains powerful and influential, and far from dying out. As we can see, the conclave is in fact being rebuilt. As the epics say, Ekpe lives, God lives.
Oye ba mpe. Mboko. Mboko nyako. Mbaka. Ibunko. Ibo. Aku. Oko.
The Ekpe society remains powerful today because it still fulfills specific contemporary roles. By contrast, the Ibinokpabia, the famous long juju known as the Aro Oracle, once exercised widespread influence throughout Igbo land. Its pronouncement on whatever was in dispute was accepted as the decision of the highest possible court of appeal. The basis of its judicial powers no longer exists.
People came to Ibinokpabia for some problems. It acted as a court of appeal. But they were also asked to pay some fines, and some of the fines were in slaves. So I do not think for a moment that the Ibinokpabia played a lot of role in procurement of slaves, but it did play religious functions as other oracles in Igbo land.
In contrast, the traditional communal judicial process may still be invoked among the Idoma when necessary. Here, a case of theft is being disposed of by the lineage head through a constituted jury. In this instance, a goat has been reported stolen and a suspect identified. The suspect, having pleaded guilty in a pre-trial investigation, the accepted lineage head convenes a jury, which listens to both sides. Since, with the acceptance of guilt, the issue now concerned compensation, the jury deliberates and imposes an appropriate fine. This is instantly paid by the relations of the culprit.